In fact, I've been told most of my life, you can't do that. You can't do that. You learn to adapt and you make sure you can do it. And almost like proving that, yes, you can do that.
This episode of the podcast, I chat with Jon Mills, the founder of Canterbury Brewers and Distillers. I visited Jon at the Foundry Brew Pub, a restaurant, pub and brewery, all set inside a converted Victorian foundry set in the heart of the historic city of Canterbury. We talked through the highs and lows of brewing, the bright future of spirit distilling, and how to set your business apart from the rest. Let's get into it. Jon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us into the brewery, the Foundry, it is.
Yep.
So I guess the number one question we have to ask is, what is it we're drinking here?
Right, well, I'm having a pale ale because it's a bit early in the day, so I would normally be drinking an IPA probably, but towards the end of the day. And you're having a South Island lager. So South Island lager, the hops are from the South Island of New Zealand.
All right, wow, great. Well, first, I guess...
Hope you enjoy.
Cheers, yeah, thank you very much. Oh, that's gold.
Cool. I gave you a lager because just to show the point that all of our beers are unfiltered, unpasteurized. The only ingredients are water, barley, hops, and yeast. That is it. We do not add anything else, unless, of course, we're doing a 9.6% chocolate vanilla porter or a fruit beer or something like that.
Fair enough. Yeah, it pains me as an Australian to say that the Kiwi ingredients is actually pretty tasty.
Yeah, sorry, I should have thought about that.
That's cool. So the question I think burning on my mind is always, what's it like to own a brewery? It seems like it's so many people's dreams, like what it's like, and it's probably a lot different from what we think or perceive it is to own a brewery.
Yeah, it's hard work. No, it is cool, and I'm very happy with what I do because I enjoy the creative process. So I was a chef for many years, and I brewed for a very long time on a home level, if you like, taught by my father, and then wanting to bring that into the business, and then the natural progression was then to move to distilling. So we do a real wide range of stuff here. So we do 14 beers, a cider, 9 spirits. If you include all of the whiskies, then that's about 15 spirits. So we're doing all sorts. So I really love that creative side. Unfortunately, when you run a business or you become a brewer, if your business doesn't work, then you're not brewing. And if you're running a business and not brewing. So it's not quite as glamorous as a lot of people would think.
So you're just sort of sitting around drinking beers all day, making beers, testing what everyone thinks is the idea of running a brewery, right?
Yeah. Cool. Or if you're not even as the business owner, you're running the business, so you end up tied to a desk as opposed to brewing, and then you employ someone else to brew. I mean, I do all of the distilling, but Simon does all of the brewing now. He's on holiday at the moment, and so I'm back in the brewery, and I absolutely adore it. Turn my phone off, mashing in, mashing out. No one to bother me. I'm a very happy person when I'm doing just that, but you have to run the business as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if it's not profitable, then you can't carry on doing what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you come up with the idea for beers? Is there something, like, I've always wondered this because this beer tastes amazing. Cool. And for me, it's kind of a mad scientist idea of just throwing in things and hoping it turns out, but I'm sure you have a bit of a process into how you come up with a recipe for a beer. Yeah,
I mean, your explanation isn't too far out. There are lots of different types of brewers. Some will, approach a beer enormously academically and we'll do lots of tests, lots of samples. Me, I do kind of like just throw stuff together, a bit like how I cook. But there's obviously rules, and the more experience you have, the more you're aware of what rules there are. So if you say to me, let's make a stout, there will be a recipe for a stout. Same as if you're cooking a meal, then there'll be a recipe for that, and you look at that, and then you tweak and change that recipe to that style to suit yourself. And naturally, your environment will change that beer as well. So you might use local hops. So down at the end of the building there, we've got East Kent Goldings from our local farm. So you might be using those. Your kit is probably unique. Ours is a mismatch of different size kit from different breweries, and that will make it. I will make it unique. Simon will make it unique. What temperatures we mash in at will make it unique. What yeast we use. It goes on and on and on. But you have to follow certain rules to achieve what you're trying to achieve.
Actually, when we first met you, it was when they were doing the launch of the Taste of Kent Awards.
Right.
And we had 10-minute brewery tours, I think it was each, and I think you had a line up out the door.
Yeah.
So we didn't get much time to chat. But what really struck me and why I wanted to get you on the podcast was being a beer lover and beer admirer myself. I've done a lot of brewery tours. You know, when you go abroad, you always go there. Everyone does the Guinness tour, the Heineken tour, and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And coming here, I saw the brewery room, you know, from a distance at first, and I thought it's not much of a tour. It's kind of a small room.
Yeah.
But then from hearing you talk and how much you actually get done out of that room there, I was blown away.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think you've just listed off like over 10 beers, you know, over 15 spirits. And that's pretty impressive how you get that into rotation out of that small room.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, really. I mean, when we just did the brews that we do, and we get visited from brewers and distillers from all over the globe. I'd like to say it's because I'm wonderful and the best brewer. It's because we got this huge church in Canterbury. They come here on holiday. They go to the cathedral. The brewer looks on his phone, goes, brew pub. And they come in. I have some of my hero legends in brewing from all over come through the doors, and distillers from South Africa, Australia. We're very, very lucky, and they don't believe. They go, you can't do that. But then I've been told I've been told most of my life, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. You learn to adapt, and you make sure you can do it. And almost like proving that, yes, you can do that. So first I was told you can't make lager with the equipment that you've got. Yes, you can. I've got 2 lagers, and that goes on and on and on. You can't make 2 different styles with 2 different yeasts all in the same room. There'll be cross-contamination. We do. We've got several different yeast styles on the bar. So it is unusual. But then to throw up distilling, so to brew in the back of a restaurant is pretty unusual. To then distill in the back of a restaurant is pretty unheard of in the UK anyway. But then to do whiskey, vodka, rum, gin, moonshine, all of those products, I don't know anyone who's doing it, to be honest.
I think you touched on a really good point. Like you said, you've been told all your life that you can't do something.
Yeah.
And you seem like the sort of person who doesn't really heed that advice.
I'm bloody minded. Well, my wife will say I'm bloody minded. But, yeah.
But I think that's the best thing, and I think that's probably what a lot of successful business owners have. That sort of thing of hearing that you can't do something and taking it forward, regardless of that, and making a way for it to work and happen. So it's really cool to hear that. It's kind of nice to hear that thing echo, because it's something I find common amongst the successful business owners that we get to meet.
I'm not sure how successful I am, but it depends what you gauge as success, I suppose.
Well, I think the number one thing of success is, are you happy in life?
Yeah.
And are you enjoying what you're doing, and are you sustainable?
Yeah.
There's variations, like people will think if you've got like the big house, the big car, lots of money to go with it.
I haven't got any of those things.
Well, there's still time, There's still time. But I think success is those 3 main things. You've got to have family, you're happy with your family, you get to spend time together and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I'm very happily married, 5 kids, all ranging from 1 to 14, so we're very busy at home.
Jeez Louise, wow. You don't have a television at home then?
No, it broke. And then, we do what we do here, but we have a fabulous team, and my wife's my business partner. And for us, that doesn't cause a problem. That works really well. So, no, I'm very, very lucky.
So what were you doing then before you started a brewery? Like, how long ago did you start?
So we started the brewery just over 12 years ago. Before that, I was running my own business with, not my wife then, but another business partner, Gary. And we worked for quite a few years running someone else's business for them. Okay. They kind of like got to retirement age, but their kids weren't old enough. And then when the kids were of age, we then trained the kids, and then they took over the business, and the business continued to be extremely successful. So we did that. Before that, I was business development manager at still in Canterbury at the University of Kent. So that was for the Students' Union. Love working with young people, with students. And that's carried through, I think, even today, like, enjoying mentoring and enjoying, seeing people progress.
That's cool. So you kind of, it's a bit of a chop and change. You're going from being a business development manager at the University of Kent to running your own brewery. So you kind of went from helping educate the students of the future to helping getting them intoxicated.
Yes, absolutely. I was very good at it as well.
The intoxication or the education?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
now we're a lot more respectable, and half our trade is food. We're a very busy restaurant, and anyone in Canterbury is impacted by the student population because it's so huge, but it's so diverse now, all ages, people from all over the planet. And so whilst we're not a student pub, as you would see, we are definitely get a lot of lecturers in, a lot of international students, a lot of Asian students, who are very much in for the experience. We really like the food, but we'll have a taster tray of different beers and, give themselves a bit of an experience for the day.
I think that's a cool thing for a brew pub. It's kind of something that I expect from a brew pub when I come in, to be able to taste all the beers. Yep. Because with how many beers you've got, if I taste all the pints, I'm probably not walking home.
Yeah, absolutely.
So having these taste plans, and it's amazing actually at how many pubs, like brew pubs that you go to that don't offer this. I'm always amazed. Like, that should be your go-to thing to sell to someone who comes in.
Yeah.
And then once they find their sort of favourite drop, then they can carry on with that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I have to be honest, it's been probably a major part of our journey. It seems silly just that stemming from a taster tray, but tourism has been a major thing for the change for the business over the last 4 years. And we had a few taster trays and they were always available. And then we started doing a brewery tour before COVID. Okay. So we're doing one brewery tour a week, and we did a few taster trays for sure. But since reopening, we now do at least 4 brewery tours a week. Taster trays are our biggest individual selling item over the bar, and that's as a price, as a cost.
Sure.
So it beats burger, it beats pint of lager, it beats pint of pale ale, which is pretty phenomenal, really. So it's our biggest selling individual item now.
So any breweries out there struggling at the moment, start offering a taster tray.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a problem in the industry to a degree, which I was guilty of, is that, you can lock your industrial unit door and be happily doing your thing all day. And like, I'm in paradise, I'm great, I'm brewing beer, on I fabulous. But unless you're out there engaging with the customer and the public, you're not going to go anywhere. And our biggest sort of growth really has been through tourism and communicating, and we do tours, people booked this week, 60, 70, that's 70 fans, strangers who are coming in, who've never known you existed, and 70 leaving as fully fledged fans of the brewery and the distillery. So it's so crucial to how we've grown.
And I think that comes down to the way that you operate that experience as well. If you make it a really special moment for them, like you said, 70 of them walk away a fan of the brewery. And I know that you do, because we had it for a very, very brief period of time, and we were blown away. And I think that's a big thing that people forget sometimes. Industry related, some people think, oh, I'm a brewery, I'm not a customer service or an experience or a hospitality.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a mistake.
Yeah, sure. It's putting on a show for them, right? They've come here, they've paid good hard money that they work for. Some people are on holiday, and they need to have that presentation and that show like it's the first show you've given for the day, even if it's a 10th show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of breweries have learned during COVID having to put a few tables outside their industrial unit, and the public then supported them and came and had a beer there, and they've gone, oh, I don't have to wait to get paid for 2 months. They actually pay me straight away.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of brewers have learned from that situation. And we didn't know at the beginning. This has been a journey that we've been on for the last 4 or 5 years, and but it's transformed the business.
That's funny. Now that we're on the subject of COVID, and we got our first COVID warning probably somewhere on the internet now.
Yeah.
What was it like trading through it? Because you were running for, you said 11 years prior?
Yeah.
Like now? So
yes.
COVID must have been a game changer, because you've got quite a big floor seating plan here.
Yeah, we'd actually been through, we'd only just recovered from a major crisis that hit the business. So we were actually only 50 yards away down the road, but the landowner went into liquidation. So came back from holiday and the liquidators were there, and they said, you need to leave because we need to sell the land. We were the only tenant left.
How long did you have left on the lease at that point, or were you not a rolling contract?
Yeah, I think we had like 4 years left on a lease or something like that.
You were still out with the liquidators?
We were still out, yeah. You've got to remember this is a huge part of Canterbury, so that was going to sell for a few £1 million. You weren't going to win the fight. But yeah, that was devastating. So we were given a month to leave, and this building that we're in now, fortunately, had just become available. So took the building, but we lost our brewing licenses, our distilling, all 5 distilling licenses, bonded warehouse license, wholesale license. So we used to sell our beer all over Kent, and we were suddenly not allowed to wholesale.
Is that because it was attached to the premise?
Correct. Jeez. All of those licenses are attached to the premises.
So then you have to reapply for everything before you can...
Yep.
Oh, my Lord.
So, but not only that, we weren't allowed, we'd lost our bonded warehouse. So all of the stock that we had, I also had to pay the tax on it, pay the duty on it, and I wasn't allowed to sell it. So
for anyone who doesn't understand what a bonded warehouse is, can you just briefly explain to them so they understand how that works?
Yeah, I mean, there are there's quite a few different bonded warehouses, but if you're a brewery, you're allowed to store your beer without paying the duty until it leaves your door. So I'm not that bright, so I hate paperwork. So I pay my duty on production. So as soon as we've made it, I pay the duty on the whole tank.
Oh, right.
Job done. But most breweries, as soon as one barrel leaves out, they pay the duty on that barrel, and then they pay duty on the next barrel.
So it's deferred tax, effectively.
Yeah.
If it's in a secured area that is considered a tax-free haven, once it crosses the threshold of
Correct.
that, then you start paying the tax.
Exactly. And it's very similar for the distillery bonded warehouse, if you like, is that we're a distillery, so therefore we're allowed to store the spirits here. Yeah. But I'm just applying to store our whiskey elsewhere in another bonded warehouse. That requires another, license altogether. So it is quite complicated. There's lots and lots of licenses. So back to the movie. So we were all done. We moved in here. We reopened without any of the brewing licenses, distilling licenses, which was a huge risk. We worked day and night, the brewer and myself, and we built a kitchen. And then we had next door open in 2 weeks. Then we carried all of the brewing equipment that you can see there down the road, put it in place, built this wall, and we had this side open in a month.
Bloody hell.
But we weren't allowed to brew. We had 2 enforcement officers, 2 separate occasions come and inspect us for brewing illegally, which was really hard to take. Why? I don't understand. You should be supporting a business like us, surely. There's the brewery. We don't have water. So,
It's kind of essential for brewing.
Yeah. So why have I got 2 separate visits for brewing illegally?
The thing is, you felt like the old school bootleggers and moonshine makers, though, right? You could kind of outlaw on your way into work.
Yeah, absolutely. So we eventually got all of our licenses back after 3 months. The move cost us tens of thousands of pounds, which we did not have. HMRC were actually brilliant. They were really helpful, and we got all of our licenses, but quite rightly, they wouldn't give me one back, which was our wholesale license. So the ability to sell to other pubs and things. And that was because I hadn't paid my VAT, because I'd used all my VAT to do this.
Okay.
So a year later, we paid off our VAT. They gave us our wholesale license. But I learned a really huge business lesson during that time. So working in a brewery, concentrating on the core business, how we got through that financially, I literally have no idea. But as a result, a year later, concentrating on the business got busier. I was here for my staff, for my team. Instead of driving a van around the county, very stressed because I wasn't here, not actually making any money. So that was a big lesson, like just focus on one thing, John. And then started to do a tour, looked out the window on a Saturday, restaurants packed, and you're going, God, I think we've made it. And I hate to say it, but maybe this was the best thing that ever happened. Bigger space, more tables, socially distanced.
At the time, for sure.
And a very busy food trade, but they were coming here to have food with their beer. So they're coming for the beer, but to have their food. And we started to build on the distilling side, and then we got hit by COVID. So never started wholesaling again. 3 weeks into COVID, I felt that I wasn't contributing to the horrors that were on the telly. So I came in and learned how to make hand sanitizer from sugar, from table sugar.
Oh, cool.
And we made hand sanitizer. We didn't sell it. We gave it away to the Salvation Army across the road and the Arms House Hospital in the High Street and local care homes. So that got me back into work. Nothing to do with having 5 kids at home.
5 kids and no TV. So you've got to come down and start brewing something.
That was a real risk, bear in mind we have a 1-year-old. So
definitely.
So those 3 weeks were problematic. I had another one. So we did that. And then I got a phone call from an investor who was interested in investing in a East End brewery. But he said, my neighbour, socially distanced, of course, John said, you might be interested. I said, you must be mad. I said, it's saturated market. You won't make any money. And I'll just keep asking you for more money as we expand and more money. I said, but I'd been sitting here on my own with a whiskey barrel that I'd filled.
It's a little bit too honest at the time, yeah?
Yeah, so I opened a whiskey barrel and I said, have you ever thought about whiskey? And so we ended up with an investment just for our whiskey. Fantastic. Brand new still, 500 litre still during lockdown. So I got that all delivered, built, started making whiskey through my first 3 batches away. I didn't. I redistilled them into vodka, but
fair enough.
You get the point.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, they won't know the difference that vodka drinkers anyway.
It's good quality. So we started making whiskey, and now we're on another venture, which is we're making whiskey.
So how aged is the whiskey going to be?
So our first whiskey that we made, which was made on the little baby 100 litre still, took me 3 months distilling to fill 1 cask. So it was a labour of love, and no sense to it. And that's the one we released 2 months ago. So almost 4 years old.
So 4 years. So it's a 4-year investment, and you said you pay all the duty on that straight away.
Well, no, I did have to pay the duty on it when we moved from the old site.
Okay.
For that 1 cask. But now with the big still that we got 2 years ago, we're now making several casks a year.
Okay.
You don't have to pay that duty until I've bottled it, basically.
Okay. So once it's in the barrel, it's fine. You're not paying it. Because I was going to say, that's like, it's one thing that always struck me as whiskey, like you get 12-year and 18-year age whiskey. And I'm always like, that's a serious investment.
Yep.
Because you have to make this stuff, hope it turns out great in 18 years' time, bottle it, and then sell it.
It is a huge investment, time, space, ingredients, manpower, but you don't have to pay the duty until it's ready, a finished product.
But even so, if you open that in 18 years and everyone doesn't want to drink it.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a serious.
Even forget the financial, just the heartbreak
Absolutely.
of 18 years of your life. I mean, theoretically, you can only do 5 of those cycles, right?
Yeah.
Your entire life if you live luckily a century.
Absolutely. But if it tastes great, imagine the wonderful journey that you've been on.
For sure.
It's one of the best, enjoyable things, nerve-wracking, but you open up. I mean, I think that's the real beauty of whiskey. It is about time, and then inevitably you then share that with someone. And isn't that what life's about? So
oh wow, amazing. That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And especially I think when you open it up and taste it for yourself, you're thinking, what was I doing 18 years ago when this happened? My youngest kid was 1 and now they're 19.
Yeah.
What have you experienced in that time?
Absolutely. So you think of everything I've just told you about being on our knees as a business, and then the move, and then COVID, and that barrel sat there through all of that time.
Yeah.
So then I'm sitting in my own pub at the time, on my own. Well, you might as well have a sip and see how it's going. So there's that memory. Then when you're allowed to share that with a friend, you share it with a friend, and then we
so
launch it.
Like the highs and the lows of your distilling career and brewing career over the last 4 years.
Exactly.
In that bottle.
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. It is pretty crazy, and the whiskey's called Streetlight because.
There's one thing I was going to ask you about, the names of your beers and your whiskies and your vodkas and everything. So this one's called Streetlight. Where did this one come from?
So we're a bit of a branding nightmare. So we're Canterbury Brewers and Distillers, but the building's the Foundry. So are you the Foundry? Are you Canterbury Brewers and Distillers? You couldn't ignore the Foundry because this is a Victorian foundry, and so was the old building. It was all part of a larger area.
Yeah.
And they made the first ever electric streetlights ever made in the world.
Oh, right, bloody hell.
And exported all over the planet. So they can be found today in New York, Port Elizabeth, South Africa, various cities in India, Jerusalem, and here in Canterbury. So the really ornate cast iron streetlights in the Dane John Gardens were made here.
Oh, fantastic. And are they still in these places, operating today?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So they're still there. And the Royal Navy commissioned the first ever torpedo to be made here, and that was made here
as well, yeah?
Yeah, commissioned by Admiral Harvey. So it's not a self-propelled torpedo that, we think of, but if you imagine, like, this is a sailing ship, and there's 2 ropes coming from a sailing ship, 2 submerged vessels full of explosives, and they rammed it into the opposing ships. They tested it just off Herne Bay, and the Navy let it off too early and blew out all of the windows in Herne Bay in Victorian times, which made it very popular.
I think I've heard that story before about all the windows shattering.
There you go.
I didn't know it was that, but I remember a story about the windows shattering.
It was our fault. Yes, it was here.
It started here.
So we have a best bitter called Torpedo. We have a Navy gin called Torpedo as well.
So every single drink you make, the name comes from something historic, either associated with the building or the area, or
90% of what we make are to do with the foundry or its history or its links. But we do have the odd other like Purple Monster, just because we fancied making something
bit different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think probably in the brewing market, it's probably changed a lot over the last last decade, I would say. I remember being a younger drinker in your teens, it was there was not much variety out there. You would go to the bar, there was the same thing on the teas all the time, same thing on the hand pumps, and sort of micro brewing and smaller breweries have really up and come. I mean, we've seen the rise of people like Brewdog and Tiny Rebel and these sort of companies now.
Yeah.
A lot of the time when I taste their beers, I feel like the cans have a lot of artwork on them and the beers on the inside are the same. If that makes any sense. So every now and then I think something like you're talking about, the Purple Monster, is to come into that market again and play a little bit of that game with competing with the names or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing, 15 years since I've been in the industry for brewing, really, how, what's happened. We were being all fed lager from 4 companies, and we would drink that 98% of the beer we were drinking was from these 4 companies. And now we have 2,000 breweries in the UK. How absolutely wonderful is that? You can go to any town and go and visit a brewery, and it's completely new. So wherever you are on holiday in the UK, you can taste the local brew, and I think that's wonderful and really healthy.
I think it's a cool thing as well, because I think traditionally it used to be the fact that if someone was like home brewing or brewing, it would be a bit hit and miss. Someone bring their home brew around to a party or a barbecue, and you'd be like, I'll try like just a smidge and then go back to the normal. But now with these breweries, that I don't think it's the same thing that it used to be. They're a lot more developed. Like you said, there's individual flavors from their areas. Each one has a story.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much competition now. You're not going to survive if you're making Duff beer. It's just not going to work. You might have got away with it sort of 12 years ago for a little while but you've got to, people's palates are pretty good now. They know what they're drinking, and they found another 12 breweries that they really like, and they want, they want quality and they demand quality, which is, a real good sign that the industry's in a good, healthy place, really. Yes, there's trials and tribulations, of course, and from COVID to energy crisis but the British brewing industry is still very, very strong, and I can see the same boom that happened in brewing happen with distilling. Fingers crossed, cool. Which I think is another exciting sort of progression over the next decade.
From your time here now running it after all these years, what would you say your most favourite thing about running the business is?
To be honest, getting to the stage I'm at right now.
Okay.
And I'd love to say to you I'm a huge success. I've been really successful for years, and look at me, aren't I great? We were doing it okay as a business before we had to move and before COVID, but it's still a challenge. Having changed the business so much and having to adapt to all of these outside circumstances, I'm really proud of that adaptation that we've almost got used to adapting. There's a big fan behind us on the wall, and that's where we're recycling energy from the distilling process and heating the building. Okay. But we designed that and built it, and it's actually relatively really simple technology.
Is this sort of necessity is the mother of all invention? Energy crisis comes in, bills start going up, and you start thinking of ways to do different things?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you'd always thought that you should be doing, you're being wasteful. It's a new still, so we haven't been doing it for a long time, and you realise when you've got a larger still that there's a lot of waste energy here. How do we use it? So I would have done it anyway. It would probably nudged me to do it a little bit quicker. Okay. But it's just in our nature to do that anyway. And then get to a stage where we've rebuilt the business, and we're at a point now where we're solid, have reserves. Staff, are really looked after, which has probably been our biggest success. Looking after everyone through COVID, and every team all being here when we reopened, we were really strong. Unlike most hospitality that had let go their staff, whereas we were ready to go. Here's a free hand sanitizer. Here's our beer menu. Have you tried our whiskey? Have you tried this? And that's been. I'm really proud of that. And to be at this stage now where we can start to look at rebuilding our own personal finances, if you like, it's kind of like, oh, we've done it. We're back up and strong, and that's really cool. I'm very proud of what we've achieved, and I want to continue the good things that we did. Not rest on our laurels. So all kinds of ideas going through my head.
I think that's a cool thing. I meet a lot of different people from a lot of different businesses, especially in the job that we do. And I find there's a couple of different categories of people. Like some people are moaners. Like they would have experienced what you experienced coming back from holiday and getting kicked out and just whinged about it. And then blamed everyone else. It's not my fault. The building owners kicks me out. And then
I did a lot of that.
but you didn't just do that. Is what my question is. It's fine to get pissed off and have a moan and go into that sort of thing, but as long as you're doing something actively, along the way, we say like, being depressed or moaning or whinging is kind of like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but you're not going to get anywhere in it.
Yep.
So just do that while you're doing something else to progress.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's, again, one of the biggest lessons I've learned. You start blaming other people, and yes, there is elements of, that deserve to be blamed, for lack of support for business or whatever, but you're not going to achieve anything. And all you do is end up being really angry. So, when you have that kind of thing happen now, I just breathe deeply and, okay, what's the way around? What's the solution? What can I do? Because it's a waste of energy. It's such a waste of energy being angry at someone. That's their problem. And so leave them in their pit of horribleness to do whatever they want to do.
It's good that there are people out there like it, because they're the competition.
Yeah.
So it means that it's easier for people who put their head down and do something. It's always interesting to know where that motivation or where that was instilled in you comes from. I had a lady that I worked for, a great lady, shout out to Jane, in London. She was one of the first managers I had of a pub when I first came as a young Australian lad to the UK. And she loved a good drink-up session afterwards, a lock-in. Yeah. And, most people think of lock-in, at the time it was last call, 11 o'clock, 10:30 on a Sunday, ring that bell and everything closed up. And a lock-in for most pubs at the time were probably like an hour after work for the staff and the manager. Whereas with Jane, we would have a good session till 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 in the morning. Yeah. But you would feel absolutely rotten, and she would be back up there as the leader of the company, 6 a.m., taking dray delivery, cleaning tables, cleaning glass, making sure everything's going through, back on with it. And so I thought, like, God, if this Geordie double my age can be doing this, then I can do it. And I think you learn from people like that in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is there anyone in your life who sort of did that for you?
Cool. Wow. Yeah, many. I mean, I've worked in hotels and kitchens, London to Cornwall to Wales to Australia to Perth. I worked in Perth and Fremantle for a year. And there's lots and lots of characters that that I've met, like the restaurant manageress in the restaurant in Perth, for example. She's no messing at all. But in fairness, she was completely fair, but hard as nails. And the more you got to know her, you realise, she's just doing her job really, really, really well. And if you do your job really, really, really well, she might like you. But if not, just get out. But so there's lots of people. I think other people in the brewing industry, such as like Eddie Gadd at Gadd's Brewery in Ramsgate, just enormously supportive from day one. Not one thing of like, oh, your competition, or has always been really, really helpful. And I think characters like that in the industry are so important. And he does a lot for the industry, nationally with government as well. You've got to give real credit to people like that.
Yeah, it makes it easier for others coming in.
Absolutely.
Afterwards,
Yeah.
So one story about brewing or distilling that others wouldn't think of. What's something that, you're sitting there with an outside perception of something that people wouldn't know about?
Oh, okay. It's not sexy, I'm afraid. So lots of people, want to get into brewing and distilling because it's cool, or you can have, and it is cool, and but it's really hard work, and the majority of it is cleaning. Okay. So if you don't like cleaning, don't just drink beer at the bar. Don't go behind the bar. Don't go in the kitchen. Don't go in the brewery. The reason we run our brewery so well and have so many beers and spirits coming out of there, because I run it like a trade kitchen. I run it like a restaurant, a very busy restaurant kitchen, and therefore it's spotless, it's immaculate, it's left like that at the end of it, because that's when a small space doesn't work. In a small space, you have to be completely and utterly on it. So if you don't like cleaning, don't bother coming into the brewing industry, distilling industry, or indeed the hospitality industry, because the majority is cleaning.
Yeah, fair enough. I used to get that thing, working hospitality, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Absolutely.
It was like the catchphrase across hospitality.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, makes sense.
Well, the same goes for brewing. And if you don't clean properly, you end up with really rubbish beer.
I can imagine that's an expensive mistake.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
Favourite beer or drink that's not one of your own?
Oh, that's really difficult. I was expecting, what's your favourite beer of your own? I don't know.
You can upset someone now if you don't say theirs.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love a pint of, really, really well-made English ale, and there's a number of, really, really well. They're all really, really good in Kent. But if I was to pick a few out the air, then Gad's Brewery in Ramsgate, Tonbridge, Hot Fuzz. There's a load of really good breweries. So a good traditional English ale. When I started all this, I went to the States a lot, and so I ended up drinking beer a lot in the States as well, as part of this learning journey. And Dogfish Head became a real favourite. Right. Some Founders beers as well. We've kind of like cloned them a little bit with a couple of our rotational beers.
A decade ago, I would have said going to America for a brewery education thing would be wrong.
Yeah.
Because the American beers are notoriously very much like lolly water, Budweiser and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But now it's having quite a revival with what they're getting out there, or?
They, believe it or not, they actually started it all. So,
really?
So well over a decade ago. Yes. So they went through the same thing as us. 98% of what they were drinking was produced by 4 companies, and that was, the likes of Budweiser and Coors and Miller's, but brew pubs, this exact business model started to pop up and then became absolutely huge all over the States. So we're talking 20 years ago.
Bloody hell.
And so the Americans have actually been used to really, really good beer for quite a while now. And so the IPA explosion, we talk about Brewdog and we talk about Tiny Rebel, that all started in America. So the IPA, revival and the brewing revival happened in the States from this business model, brew pubs all over the United States. So you go to a city like Canterbury or a town the size of Canterbury, there would be 8 brew pubs, not 1. So all competing, very friendly, but very, competing, really high, and you end up with really good quality produce. And that passion then went all over the world. Some rule changes were made here, so we had a craft beer explosion, but before that we had a cask ale explosion, in the UK.
Yeah, sure.
But yes, so what's happened in Australia, New Zealand, even Spain, that it all started in the States. So when I went over 12, 14 years ago, I was going like each year. It was really buzzing. So, whatever city I went to, I could go to 12, 20 brew pubs, taste all kinds of different beers.
Group of you go together?
So myself and my business partner back in those days, we went out each year for about 4 or 5 years.
So it's kind of a lad's vacation, then going around drinking beer?
Yeah, kind of. But it was a conference, so we did do some learning. So
some people go to Mallorca, and you're off to the States to drink beer,
Yeah. So it was a massive... Again, the Americans, when they do a conference, they do a conference. It's massive, so it's a big craft beer conference. And
everything in America is big.
Yes.
So you can't do anything in half measures.
Absolutely.
It's like go big or go home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then, we walked into Stone Brewery, and the brew pub, right? You're walking into a brew pub. If you can imagine there's this huge gargoyle, twice the size of this building, on the side of the wall, carved in stone. You go, whoa. And then like the service was fantastic. The beers were amazing. You walk into the beer garden, and that was a Japanese garden.
Oh, bloody
you know, with bridges and streams going through it. That's just taking brew pub and pub to a completely another. And the glass window, you look through ours, it looks wonderful. Yeah. They've got a 50-barrel brewery, huge brewery, through a wall of glass. And, you know, you learn from seeing and, you know, just doing it the best of the best.
They know how to present things, I think, in America. Yeah. Like, it's, I think, the benefit of a newer country, less restrictions on building and stuff like that here. I mean, I imagine this is a listed building.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got limitations on what you can do and everything like that. But yeah, the Americans really know how to go all out on presentation and showmanship.
Yeah, I mean, but for us, of course, being a Victorian building is actually, that's what the attraction is. So
yeah, for sure.
The Americans coming here and visiting, they go, oh, gee, this is great. You know?
And it's nice what you've done with the place, to be fair. Yeah, like, it's comfortable. There's a lot of tap rooms you go into and it feels like you're, you know, can't wait to get out. You're worried if you need to get a tetanus shot after you've been there, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's not good.
But this is good. It's comfortable. And I think that's a big thing with a lot of the business side of it, like making sure the presentation's good, that people want to come in there. Now with like things like social media, people taking photos and going out there, it's massive. Like, it's huge, it's horrible. I hate it. Like, it's probably one of the aspects of our business I hate the most. But it's probably one of the most important.
And you need to wrap your head around it really quick if you're running a business.
Yeah.
100%. Because I said about the fans, you know, that we're sending out the door by doing tours and, you know, I don't know anything about marketing. I know nothing about PR. But I realised, I do know something because this is what we're doing. And then my wife's making sure that pictures are done of all of the food and then our amazing staff, we end up getting review after review. So kind of like by accident, but when you get a 5-star, 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 the staff are amazing, the food's amazing, the beer's amazing. That's what you need. You want about 5 of them reviews a week, and it starts to build.
Yeah, and I think as well, if they're putting you on social media, if they've got like 1,000 friends who see that post about where they've been when they've come to Canterbury.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, of course, they're taking pictures of taster trays of the food. And
I think that's a big thing as well about making... I think people think, I'll just go on social media and I'll be there.
Yeah.
But I think having something that's... what I always call it Instagrammable. You know, have something that people are going to take a photo of every time.
Yeah.
Because if you have 100 people here on a weekend and they all snap a photo of that and each of them have 1,000 friends on Facebook, that's 100,000 people exposed now to your brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you need to have that something that people are going to, taste a tray with some snacks in the middle, bang, look what we're doing Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, we are still absolutely learning and consider ourselves to know nothing, but the things that we've done over the last few years have made, you know, a real big difference to business, and some of that's been by accident. You know, it's just it's the reviews and the customer has been driving that. But if you've got fantastic staff and you're serving great food and you're serving great beer, then that's a really good start.
I think that's the number one thing, isn't it? If that's kind of your primary and taken on, everything's peripheral. It's added onto it at the end of it. So it's great if you could be the most Instagrammable thing in the world and your marketing's great. But if your product's shit, shit. What are you going to do about that?
Absolutely.
So, anyone thinking about starting a brewery, what would your advice to them be?
Don't.
That was a short. I need you to elaborate on that a bit more. So,
it's really hard, and no, I don't mean don't. Of course, it is a really hard business, and I consider myself really, really lucky. You know, I brew to sell directly to consumer, so I get paid. If you're setting up a brewery, you're predominantly selling to the trade. Whether that be, you know, retail or selling to pubs. Therefore, you might not get paid for a month. Some people won't pay you for 2 months. Some people won't pay you at all. They'll just go to the next new brewer, and then they'll go to the next new brewer, and there are actually places that actually do that. So they just bankroll themselves by not paying brewers and just going from one to the other. If there's 40 brewers in a county...
you could do a rotation.
You can do this for a long time, and there are people that do that. So, so it is hard.
You start a brewers vigilante group.
Yes, absolutely. There is one. It's very secret.
I'm the leader.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not leading. But no. I mean, good luck to you. Go for it. But my one bit of advice will really think about selling or doing something in your business that's direct to the consumer. Even if you're on an industrial estate, do a little, festival once a month, and bring people to that space. Make them fall in love with you, because they will. If you really love what you do and you're passionate about what you do, and if you're producing a great product, that will immediately shine when you start talking to people. So give them that opportunity. Just do a tour. Just do a brewery tour once. Make sure the brewery's safe. Open the bar up. Let people walk around the tanks. Touch them. Don't get possessive. You can wash down the outside of the tank tomorrow. Make it safe for them and get them involved, and people will love it.
And I guess I think a lot of people expect things instantly now. We live in a very instant generation. I know I always explain this to my kids. Some things take time to load.
Yeah.
They expect to be able to click on YouTube and the video plays 1 second later, or Netflix, and they can watch. It's funny, we watched Mr. Bean. They hadn't seen Mr. Bean. And in Australia, we only had Mr. Bean on SBS, which is like a foreign broadcast service channel. And it was the only thing on that channel that we ever watched. But there was one episode of Mr. Bean every Sunday. And my brothers and I think it probably took us about 8-10 years to watch all of the Mr. Bean episodes because it was, rotating through the seasons. I showed my kids when it became, I think it was on Amazon. And I said, I used to watch this with my brothers. It's pretty funny. You'll like it. Let's watch this. Showed them an episode, then I went off to do something else, and I came back 4 hours later, and they'd watched every single Mr. Bean episode that I'd seen in my life in that 4 hours. And a lot of people I meet today in business, I think they expect that instant thing, and it's seeing things on social media, like people flying in private jets and living the high life. They don't realise the hard work that it takes in. Like if you do your first brewery tour and one person turns up, don't be disheartened. Make that one person have the best experience of their life.
Absolutely.
And then they're going to go away and tell their 10 friends. Yeah. If you go miserable because, I've done this and one person's turned up and that's the tank and that's the brewing, and you walk out with a horrible experience. The whole reason we came back here was from that, and I think we were about probably 8th or 9th in a row of the night of you doing tours, was because of your energy and telling us what you did in that space. Brought us back here. Yeah, that was. It was. You were selling. What I always say is you're selling without selling.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you weren't saying like, buy my beer, this is great, go out and buy my beer. You were telling us a story, and you did it in 10 minutes, and you had probably 6 other tours behind us as well, and you'd done 8 before. And I felt the passion, and I felt this connection of, I want to know more about this.
And I never get bored of telling, so it doesn't matter that I've done 6. The only problem is that I forget what I've said and what I haven't said. And so if I do tours back to back, that does get a bit like, have I told you that? No, okay. But I don't get bored of it because I genuinely am just telling you about what I love doing and what I'm really, really passionate about. And because I'm not making it up, I don't have to panic about telling you a lie or anything because I'm just telling you the truth. You don't have to think much if you're not fibbing or selling, if you like.
Yeah, sure.
You're just telling them a story. And when I was a kid or a teenager, I didn't really have that many fears, I guess. So I would quite happily public speak. And then got 22, I probably never did it again. I never had to kind of like do it again. I managed, so to my team. So it was very daunting to do a brewery tour. And then you do it and you go, I'm not going to get caught out because there's nothing to catch me out on because I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And then you start doing it, and it's given me lots of confidence. And now I do 4 a week, but I even do to 60 people. I even go to like a university out to do a lecture. I thought you
were about to say you fit 60 people in there for a second.
No, but we do in the restaurant,
okay,
and you can see it through there. So I literally do a tour whilst everyone's seated, but I even got invited to it. I was very nervous about doing it, but when I did it, I was just saying I just pretended I was doing a brewery tour. And do you know what? That's what I told them. I went, I'm really nervous. I'm going to pretend I'm in my brewery. And they went, okay, weirdo. And then I just did my tour. I think what I'm trying to get the point over, because I mean you've explained it very well. Is just, put yourself out there, but put it out there in something you're really comfortable with. If you're a really good writer and you were really good at English, which I'm not, then do a blog. If that's another skill that you have, then do a blog. Tell people what you're brewing every week and how you're doing it. And if you're good at photography, take loads of photos, put them on Instagram. And if you're good, like standing up, which I didn't think I was, I've relearned it and gone, I'm actually quite good at this. So that's what we do. That's our marketing, if you like. So.
And I think that's natural. And I think also something that shines through from you is you like what you do. You keep repeating this. And if you're doing something that you don't like, you should exit it as fast as possible, from my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just continues to grow to what my knowledge and what I can do, different types of oak, different types of wood. It's just a constant, wonderful learning curve where you get to taste it. And for me, that's like an amazing journey. If I'd have the same journey if it was cheese. I love it. So
the things that annoy you about the brewery business, is it anything regulations wise, or?
Again, we touch on what I spoke to you about before. I think if you spoke to me 5 years ago, I wasn't an angry person. I'm always, I'm a pretty nice guy, chilled out, and but I would get really angry at stuff, bureaucracy or lack of support, or but it doesn't get you anywhere, and you just end up using loads and loads of energy, and to be honest, you being grumpy ain't good for your kids or your wife or your team you're working with, even if you're not the person who's taking it out on anyone, but just people like happy people, do you know what I mean? And I think I have learned through the last sort of 4 or 5 years, there is no point. So there isn't a lot that makes me angry anymore. I see it almost, you see all these business gurus, don't you, on the telly and that, and they go like, see it as an opportunity, embrace it. I'm not quite embracing it yet. I haven't got to that point. But what they're saying is right. It is a waste of energy, and okay, almost see it as a challenge.
When you watch it from a third perspective, you're kind of seeing these very cheesy presentations and you're thinking, wanker.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the truth is, a lot of the message they're delivering is right.
Yes. Yeah. So, I have to be honest with you, there isn't a lot that, makes me angry. I've always been, half glass full as opposed to empty. That's my nature. I think the brewing industry is going through difficult times, but I think it's in a very strong place, and I think it's in a great place. If I disagree with some new style or something like that, there's no point being angry about it. Just don't drink it.
It's an easy solution, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think as well with the online world, people go out of their way to write stuff or post comments and stuff like this on stuff they don't agree with. And it's like, why waste your time and energy? Just don't watch it, don't drink it, don't eat it, leave it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's one, I don't do much social media, and thankfully my wife has taken on most of the social media. But I did find one of the platforms, just I can't be on here. It's just constant. People who are on there want to debate and argue, and I don't want to, so I just don't do it anymore, because it's just depressing.
Yeah, never read the comments section, because it's just generally full of negativity and people who want to piss on your fire.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people out there, they kind of wish they had something that like you have. And if they feel like, I could have done better. There's a great quote from Quentin Tarantino, actually, as people come up and tell him, like, in your movie, I would have done this. And he goes, great, well, go make your movie.
Yeah.
Go brew your beer, or go make your food or your pub.
Yeah.
That's the easiest answer to those sort of things.
Yeah, and I think on most of the platforms, you don't see any of that for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good.
So it's a testament to you and the team that you've got here then.
Yeah, we do have as I said, I keep saying it, but it's the most important thing we are. It's the team that we have. So,
besides the idea that distilling's cool,
Yeah.
Because it has to make financial sense as well.
Yep.
Why did you go from brewing to distilling?
It's actually a really, really natural progression, if you like. So we're rare, not only as a brew pub that brews its own beer and then distills as well. That makes us really unusual to do both in the back of a restaurant in the UK. But as a distillery, we're really rare in the country as well. So there are over 400 gin makers in the country. I don't know what the exact number is, but let's say less than 25 make their gin from scratch. So we actually have the license to make alcohol on site. So we make our alcohol from English barley, and our alcohol essentially is vodka. So we make vodka from English barley, whereas the rest of the distilleries are buying that in and flavouring the vodka.
So they're getting the ethanol in,
correct,
effectively, and then chucking in the juniper berry and whatnot, and then flavouring that up.
Yeah. So how do we make our I don't call it ethanol, I call it vodka because it's a quality product. We basically make a beer. The only difference is we just don't add the hops. Okay. So we make a 10% beer, and then that's what we distill all the way to 96% to make our vodka. We distill it one more time to make our vodka that goes in the bottle. And then to make our gin, we clean the still. We put the vodka into the still. I get a bucket of juniper berries. I throw the juniper berries in, go and have a pint and go home. Come back the next morning. The vodka's pulled out all of those wonderful flavours. Then we add orange peel, lemon peel, angelica root, orris root, hop, apple, coriander seed. Then we water the vodka down, and then that's what we distill to 76% to make our gin. So what's coming off the still is our gin. So the first part of the process is making a beer. Mm-hmm. Same equipment, same fermentation tanks, same copper and everything that you can see there. So we already have half of a distillery, of a proper distillery. So it's actually really logical, for me anyway, it's a logical next step. To make whiskey, you make a beer, again, no hops. Our sweet point is we make the beer to 8% because we're not after quantity, we're after quality. So we make an 8% beer with the highest quality brewing malt, and then we distill that only to 60%, so it retains all of its flavour, and that's what we put into the oak barrel. And so we were half of a whiskey making distillery as well.
It's kind of optimising then, really, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, it's interesting then because again, you've got a small space, but and I guess I think actually your small space has been beneficial for you because you've had to optimise.
Yes.
Whereas people with a large brewery with lots of tanks don't really feel the need to optimise.
Yes, and my brain works like that anyway. On a natural problem solver. Okay. Uneducated problem solver, in fact.
They're the best, though, to be fair.
Exactly.
They're the best.
They're the ones who blow themselves up on a regular basis.
But 1 out of 10 does something to fix the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I do wake up in the middle of the night and solve a problem. And we'll go on to the mushrooms a little bit later. But what we're not built to do is make rum. So to make rum from scratch, so to make vodka from scratch, gin from scratch, very rare. To make rum from scratch in the UK is virtually unheard of. So there's a handful of people. But we use our brewing equipment. We make rum from sugar canes, so from molasses. Okay. We make a molasses wine, again 8%, and then that's what we distill to make our rum at 60% and age in muscatel casks. Today, we are up for the finals of the world, so the second stage of the World Rum Awards. So we've already won gold for our hybrid still rums, and we've won gold of all of the categories for a hybrid still. We now go up against the two other stills globally. We beat a an Australian distillery to get the gold.
It wasn't Bundaberg, was it?
No, it wasn't Bundaberg, but they are in the competition. So is Havana Club. So it's all of those names that you know.
Bundaberg's not going to be up the top anywhere near it. It's like the sort of thing you clean your paintbrushes with after painting your nan's wall. Sorry, Bundaberg.
No comment. So we make rum from scratch.
That's cool.
And we even make American moonshine. So
the moonshine, that was definitely something I wanted to get onto because obviously the traditions and the origins of moonshine's all illegal, right?
Yep.
You know, making it in a bathtub and then eventually in a still and bootlegging it across during Prohibition.
Yes, correct.
Where did the inspiration from that? I'm guessing from that.
Yep.
But then there was something that was happening there that you optimized to make the moonshine, or?
Yeah. So what is moonshine is the first answer I'll give you. So moonshine is a legal spirit made during Prohibition. That spirit was whiskey.
Okay.
Americans make their whiskey from their excess harvest, and their excess harvest is corn. Mm-hmm. So they make their whiskey from corn. So bourbon's made from corn, and then it's aged in oak. So the illegal whiskey that they're making, all spirit that comes off a still is clear. It's not brown. It comes out brown from the barrel, not from the still.
Okay, so not even from the flavourings. It doesn't matter what you chuck in as a flavouring, it's not going to matter?
It comes off clear. Right. Every spirit that comes off a still is clear.
Okay.
So it's a corn whiskey, comes off a still clear, goes into a jam jar, and then it's delivered to you in a fast car by Bowen, Duke and Daisy. So it comes off at still strength, so anything from 55 to 65% in a jam jar, crystal clear, which is what you see on the telly, and it's not aged. So unlike the Scotch, like the Irish and the English whiskey that's being aged for 3 years, the moonshine is straight off a still, so it's strong, and it has in the aging process it smooths the spirit out. Magic happens with the oak.
Okay. So it gives it a bit of flavour and a bit of scent, and it makes it a bit more palatable.
Hugely, and there's a lot of interaction with the oak. There's lots of interaction with the caramelised sugars in the oak because the oak has been toasted on the inside, and all of these interactions that go on make the spirit magical. The moonshine hasn't gone through that, so it's unaged. So that's why it's known for being rough.
So it's rocket fuel, effectively.
Yeah,
it's straight off the tap.
It's straight off the tap.
Unpasteurised. And, okay.
Yeah, so...
I guess when you were in the age of Prohibition, you didn't have time to go and age things.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just wanted to keep shifting the stuff. People still wanted to party.
Yeah, and you can still, by distilling it to a bit of a higher strength, you can still make a smooth spirit.
Okay.
So you can still make a good, tasty, smooth spirit.
I was about to say, we were talking about your moonshine now, so we don't want to tell people we're selling unpasteurised crap.
Yeah. No, you can still do a really, really good job and have a really good...
So was yours corn then?
So, no, it's not.
Okay.
So I did some research into pirates, as you do. So we'd made a rum, spice rum. So what do we call it? There must be a pirate in Canterbury, surely. So I did loads of research. And then came up with Smuggler Sam. So we call our rum Smuggler Sam. We were the infamous smugglers of the UK. You think of Poldark and Cornwall and smuggling. No, here. So specifically here. So Dymchurch, Deal, Whitstable, Thanet Coast. We were the infamous, and it makes total sense that we were the main smugglers because we're closest to France. Makes complete sense.
Okay, so the stopping time, like to getting over there, it's like the break between here and central London and Europe and whatnot.
Yeah, so huge smuggling gangs in this specific area, and they were smuggling the most boring thing, which was wool. They were smuggling Canterbury wool to Europe.
What was the reason for that at the time?
Well, wool at the time was heavily used, so major industrial product, and therefore was highly taxed in Europe.
Right.
So we were smuggling it from here,
tax-free,
Canterbury wool, to Europe, and whilst you're there, you might as well bring a barrel of brandy home, and obviously the industry kind of like expands. But they were called the moonshiners.
Right.
So doing the smuggling under the light of the moon from this particular area, they were called the moonshiners. We moved to America. We take the terminology with us for anything illegal under the light of the moon.
Sure, you're doing it in darkness, basically.
Yes.
No one smuggles stuff in the middle of the day.
So they were called the moonshiners,
Okay.
which then became the product, moonshine. So moonshine, the
and
word
this all happened from smuggling wool.
from Canterbury through Whitstable, through Deal, through Dymchurch. And that's where moonshine, the term, came from. I'm going, this is gold, this is brilliant. And now that gave me a total excuse to make moonshine. So,
Yeah, for sure.
So I made apple pie moonshine.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So an apple pie moonshine is, so we make a whiskey. Instead of watering it down to drinking strength with water, why would you use water? Yeah. We use cider.
So I was about to say there's going to be something
Yes.
coming in here.
So we liquor it down with cider that we make, apple juice, and then we rest it on cinnamon sticks for 10 days. And it's a firm favourite at the end of our tours because people would never have heard of it or tasted it before.
It's kind of like the nightcap ending things off.
Yes, absolutely.
Very nice.
Absolutely.
Proudest moment of running this business, I think, is a good question to get things wrapped up on.
I think I've already answered it. I'm sorry to be a bit boring, but I think it's to the stage that we're at now. I mean, I was enormously proud. We're not award chasers or anything, but we have, we were finalists for Beer of Britain, which is a huge award. We were silver nationally for one of our beers in the SEBRA Awards, Society of Independent Brewers. To get that, it's pretty cool. I mean, we got a ton of regional awards and Southeast awards, but to win the big ones. And so I was standing in Scotland to get the award next to Adnams, and Adnams is huge. And they had bronze, by the way. We had silver. But I just stood there.
Take that, Adnams.
Yeah, who were wonderful. But I thought if they only knew that we did this in the back of a pub.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a restaurant now, but in the old place we were the back of a pub.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. And
that's cool though. That's kind of like the old story of fake it before you make it.
Yeah.
If it makes any sense, like I say to a lot of businesses, do make sure that you're projecting an image bigger than you are. Whatever it is.
But we weren't necessarily trying to. We were just doing a good
your
job.
Product though is what I mean. So you taste it and you don't think that it's happening at the back of your pub where the brewing's going. You're thinking, wow, these guys must have some sort of setup to produce this.
It is a great business model in the sense that there's no hiding. If you produce something that doesn't taste nice, the customer will tell you, and you get feedback straight away. And it might be, I don't like it, or it's great, or my mate likes it, but I don't. And that's kind of like, okay, that's great, because you're not meant to like everything.
Yeah, it's subjective, isn't it, with beer?
Yeah, and
Sure.
but I hope you love something that we make is the whole thing, and that's why we expanded into spirits. If you don't like beer, then hopefully you love one of our gins, etc. But as I said, mentioned to you about the the Rum Awards. We entered awards in January just so we could. Where are we as far as distillers? What can we learn? Because we'll get feedback from the judges. From these awards, you get feedback. In that feedback, how can I get better? What can we do? And we've got 6 international awards from January till now. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. Again, if they only realised we were doing this in a back of a pub, it's nuts, really.
That's cool. I think that's the coolest thing about it is you're not letting your limitations be your limitations, if you know what I mean. It's not like you're saying, I can only brew 2 beers here and that's it.
Yeah.
People come in and get tired of those beers. You've taken it to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, this hasn't been an easy journey to have got to the stage where you feel safe in the business for the first time for sort of 5 years. You have a fabulous team. They're all working, pulling in the same direction. Everyone's happy. We're producing great product that is being, recognised not only UK but globally. Not having the stress of financial problems. I'm not saying I'm getting paid much, but but do you know what I mean?
No, I do. I mean, I run my own business as well, and I think it's probably what a lot of people don't realise out there. If you go to work and you do your own work, you get paid and you go home or whatever not.
Yeah.
But I think not having to think about money in terms of that worry is such a burden release for people.
Yeah.
But that most people don't realise. It's when you run your own business and it's like, it's tight this month, I won't take a salary.
Yep.
Or it's tight this month, I will have to make these cuts somewhere along the line.
Yep.
When the rewards come in, a lot of people will look at the rewards and give you scorn for doing so,
Yep.
but they don't generally realise the sweat and the blood and
Yeah.
the tears and everything that comes.
I mean, so many people think we're rolling in money,
Yeah.
But the reality is we haven't been paid for 4 years. We're talking subsistence living, and the businesses potentially could have collapsed at any moment. But now it's really solid and secure. The next step is getting paid for a year.
Yeah.
Wow, it's going to be well
consistent
cool.
12 months. And
Yeah.
I think what you said before, like we touched on it, but being at where you are at now, being the proudest moment of being sustainable, carrying through the trials and tribulations is an amazing feat.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good for anyone out there who's experiencing troubles themselves, regardless of whether it's business or life or whatever, not to understand like it will pass.
Yep.
If you put your mind to it, it will pass. It's
Yep.
not forever.
Yep.
And you have to press through it. But the key is you have to press through it.
Yep.
No one's going to do it for you.
Absolutely.
Because I was amazed when you told me I've been kicked out of this building after coming back from holiday, and I'm thinking, well, either they're paying you, and it's no. I've just put my head down, found a new building, come and built a bar, come and built a brewery, put a wall up, started doing a kitchen, didn't have a license to brew, have been investigated twice for potentially selling moonshine when we don't even have a water supply, and you've brought the business to where it is today. So, yeah, I totally get that. And I think that's more rewarding than anything else, is the simple rewards of, I'm here. You could probably go on to earn a load more money, but I think even then you won't feel the sense.
How can I do that?
If I had the answer, I'd be on the bar drinking your beer instead of being here. No, I don't know. But I think even if you went on to make $1 million, 10 million or whatever not, that sense of achievement of battling the toughest times and coming out of it is the thing that gets you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And believe it or not, and lots of people won't believe it, that is just now. That is literally, because the money that Christmas, I guess it was, and then we completely insulated this room, built our heat recapture system, and I just spent all of the money that I'd earned for the year.
Yeah.
Prices have gone up astronomically. We've had to put our prices. How do you got to the point of impossible to strategize any or budget any of this. So kind of went like that, did the prices, and it looks as if we've done it all correctly, and that's a huge wow. That's a relief. So,
well, look, John, thank you very much for having us here.
Pleasure.
It's been amazing. We definitely come back or get you to come and visit us in 12 months' time after we get the goals down and seal it off. For anyone who hasn't been here already, the building is the Foundry. The business is the Canterbury Brewers and Distillers. Make sure you come down and get yourself a pint. I want to cheers you at the end, but I've finished already.
Yeah, that's all right.
Tasty.
That's fine. Cheers anyway.
The beers are great. The food's great. The company's great. The brewery tours I can definitely vouch for are immense. So come down and meet John and the team. You won't regret it. John, thanks again for having us.
A real pleasure. Real pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent.